Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. Today's February 21st, 2016. It is the 51-year anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X today. And in this video, I aim to share new information with the world never before uncovered. If you're new to my channel, I have been showing how throughout history, actor agents have been used to play parts in an ongoing Masonic-Zionist Jesuit agenda that is here to divide and deceive the people of this nation, of all races, of all religions, of all sexes. As a warning, I want people to understand that I'm not out to target Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X because of their race. Far from it. These two men, when I was growing up, were my favorite historical figures, my personal heroes. So it's sad for me to discover that they were actually agents in an agenda. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X only met one time in history, and they met on the date of March 26, 1964, shortly before the Civil Rights Act. There's a reason this date is so curious. If you're new here, I teach about gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. Both the names Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X have gematria of 93, and both men were killed at age 39, the reflection of 93, in very similar fashion. The date they met on, March 26, 1964, was a date with 93 numerology, matching their names. This is no coincidence. These are the hallmarks of the Masons and Zionists who do all of their agenda by the numbers. And that's been going on since this nation began, long before Malcolm X, long before Martin Luther King Jr. It's going on up to the present. Barack Hussein Obama is the latest of these actor agents, bearing a name that is not his own, just like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. were not these men's birth names. These are names given by the gang for their numerical value. Israel, the Zionist state, was drawn up on the date of 9/3, September 3rd, in the year 47. Their Congress is called Knesset, which has gematria of 93. This number is very important in numerology and occult esoteric understanding. It is a number that corresponds with Saturn. Saturn, the keeper of time, an entity that is worshipped by the occult. A number even coded on this nation, United States of America, has gematria of 93. This is no arbitrary number. Malcolm X himself was born on May 19th, the 139th day of the year. Again, him and Martin Luther King Jr. both dead at 39. Freemasonry equals 139. I suspect that this was not really Malcolm X's birthday, May 19th, likely contrived for its numerical value. With regards to history by the numbers, in the year 64, the year the two men met, that was the year of the Civil Rights Act. Civil rights has gematria of 64 and 73. The act happened in 64 on a date with 73 numerology. July 2nd is also the exact midway point of the calendar year. By midday, think about divide and conquer. Since the Civil Rights Act, Black Americans have not benefited. In fact, Black Americans are worse off today on average than they were in 1964. That means the Civil Rights Act was a token accomplishment and not anything substantive. The date the two men met on, March 26th, was the 86th day of the year. The word symbol equals 86, so does triangle, so does pyramid. Think about the symbols that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. are. Malcolm X was murdered on a date with a life lesson number of 44, which is the kill number. Martin Luther King Jr. would be shot on 4/4, April 4th. Notice how April 4th and 44 both have gematria of 144. So does the word killer, a number coded all over death throughout history. Malcolm X's assassin was Thomas Hagen, who received a 44-year prison sentence. Thomas Hagen equals 44 in gematria, meaning he was a patsy. All part of the hoax. He probably never went to prison either. All part of the Masonic lies. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassin would die in prison on April 23rd, 1998, which is the 113th day of the year, a number corresponding with Scottish Rite Freemasonry, mainstream media, and dishonest. The date he died on was a date with 144 numerology. This is Martin Luther King Jr.'s killer. Dies in prison on a date with 144 numerology. No coincidence. From the date Malcolm X and Martin met to the date he died was a span of 333 days. The Washington Monument in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a tribute to George Washington, the first president, a 33rd degree Freemason, is 333 feet tall. These are numbers of Masonic obsession. He was killed 47 weeks as well after their meeting. 47, another Zionist Masonic signature. Martin Luther King Jr. died in Memphis, which has gematria of 47. So check this out. Here's what else is interesting about his death, Malcolm X. He died on this day 51 years ago. The numerology of the date was 107, 44, 26, and 88. The words kill have gematria of 17, 26, 44, 107. 0 doesn't count in numerology. All of these numbers sync up with the date he was killed on. He was killed in Audubon Ballroom, which has gematria of 58, like Freemasonry. The Nation of Islam is who's credited with his death. Nation of Islam equals 58, like Freemasonry, like Audubon Ballroom. This also reminds of Lincoln, who was killed in Ford's Theater, which has gematria of 58, by an actor in a theater. Think about it. And 216 weeks earlier, Lincoln was nearly killed in Willard Hotel, which also has gematria of 58. When Obama first became president, he reopened Ford's Theater, which was last reopened in 68, the year MLK was assassinated. And Obama himself is born on the 216th day of the year, being from the land of Lincoln. He's born on August 4th, 8-4. Lincoln died on a date with 84 numerology. Obama in Jewish gematria equals 84. This is how the Masons and Zionists do it. They create characters, they create them by the numbers, and they kill them by the numbers. I think Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X lived on, but their Masonic characters died. That's what's recorded in the history books. Notice the Audubon Theater where he was killed is on the 3900 block. He died at age 39, the reflection of 93. Malcolm X, 2 days before being shot, on February 19th, said that he knew he was under threat. His life was in danger. This was a date with 33 numerology, the number of Freemason obsession, a date with 42 numerology, the number that connects to Freemason, the number also stamped on black Americans in a very negative way, nigger equals 42. So does February, the only month that does, Black History Month. Obama reopened Ford's Theater on the 42nd day of the year, February 11th. This was a date with 105 numerology as well, Zionism and Masonry. Date with 86 numerology, symbol, just like the date Martin and Malcolm met. Thomas Hagen also has that gematria of 107, the big way, 44, the small way, corresponding with his death. Malcolm X killer, freed after 44 years. His name in the Nation of Islam was Talmage X, Thomas Hagen. Talmage X equals 33. How about it? Just like Muslim. Just like the date Malcolm X said he heard he might be murdered. There was a movie made by Spike Lee about Malcolm X. That movie was released on the 322nd day of the year, 322, the number of Yale's Skull and Bones, the Masonic Order. The movie runs 3 hours and 22 minutes, released on the 322nd day. You see this? Also, it should be pointed out that X, which is, the letter for Malcolm X, which is on the cover of the Spike Lee film, in English gematria sums to 144, also connecting to his death, dying on the date with a life lesson number of 44. JFK, who died just years before that, died on the first day of Sagittarius, gematria of 144, died in Dealey Plaza, named after a 33rd degree Mason. His brother would die at 1:44 in the morning, days after. Remember, Martin Luther King Jr., who would die in 68, He gave his last speech at Church of God in Christ Mason Temple, as in Freemason, at the address 930 Mason Street. He gave his last speech here on the 93rd day of the year, April 3rd, 4-3. Mason Temple has the gematria of 133. Government equals 133. These men worked for the Zionist Masonic government, that is the federal U.S. government. 93, also a number that has to do with sacrifice, the word crucifix. See what's going on here, truth seeker? All by the numbers. All by the numbers, truth seeker. All through history. Even though these men were agents, fronts, they still spoke a lot of truth. I think Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech from April 4th, 1967, A Time to Break Silence, about how silence against tyranny is the greatest betrayal of yourself and your fellow man. I think that speech is the best speech I've ever heard. I highly recommend it. April 4th, 1967, A Time to Break Silence. Also, Malcolm X, known for many great quotes. One of my favorites is this: if you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. And that is so true in this world we live in, truth seeker. So true. Also, for a more recent hoax, on February 20th, we got this headline about a police shooting. The police shooting happened in the Bed-Stuy neighborhood, Bedford-Stuyvesant, a very Masonic neighborhood. Look at Bed-Stuy, 3396, Freemason number of obsession. And this shooting comes at the anniversary time of the death of Malcolm X. And do you know what street it happened on, truth seeker? It happened at the intersection of Quincy Street and Malcolm X Boulevard. This is a hoax by the numbers, a tribute to history. Notice that the shooter, his name's Jamal Funes, having gematria of 39, which corresponds with the age of death for Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Also New York, which has gematria of 39. Of course, Malcolm X died in New York. Quincy Street, the other intersection, has gematria of 59. The number stamped on black Americans: Negro equals 59, slave equals 59, blues equals 59. Motown Records came out in 59. 59 is the kill number in Jewish gematria. This is what's going on in the world, truth seeker. Hoaxes by the numbers, tributes to history. Sorry to disappoint you, but you know, the truth must be known. The reason we haven't had any civil rights leaders, any heroes since the 60s is because the powers that be, they don't want to give them to us. Think about what the legacy of these men is in the minds of most Americans. They spoke truth to power, they were murdered, and nothing really positive ever came from it besides a bunch of false rhetoric from politicians and people who go before the TV. We live in a day and age where schools teach about Martin Luther King Jr. each year, and they teach about one speech, I have a dream. When at the end of his life, Martin Luther King Jr. said, it's a disservice to me to not talk about what I speak out about against in terms of militarism and propaganda and tyranny and deceit from high places. You never hear anything about that from Martin Luther King Jr. You only hear about the race relations. There's a reason for that. All right, truth seeker. Until next time.